How are you, Al?
Good, Rich. How are you?
I'm great, man.
That's cool. You know what? It started out as my son was, the son of Al Leiter, and that's cool, and I don't know how he takes it. And then all of a sudden now it's Jack Leiter, whose dad is Al Leiter, and I love it.
Well, you know what, Al? I mean, I was disappointed to hear that you're stepping away from doing Yankee games, but then I found out the reason why, and I couldn't be more happy for you. It's great.
Thank you. That's nice. First of all, I had a ball. John Filippelli, who runs the network, and working with Michael Kay and Paul O'Neill and David Cohn and Ken Singleton, those guys, it was a blast. It really was. But truthfully, even as limited the schedule is, I want to see my son play more. His senior year, and he's viewed highly, and I didn't want any series, either home at Yankee Stadium or on the road, to possibly not allow me to watch, and that was really the driving force behind it.
Well, good for you, man. Good for you. What's your favorite opening day memory from your playing days?
My favorite opening day memory was 1988 when I got the call. Well, not the call, but I made the team. Dave Righetti came up to me in Fort Lauderdale and said, "Where you living, kid?" And I said, "Dave, I don't know if I made the team yet." This was right before they announced it. Or told me, and he said, "You made it. Don't worry about it. Do you have a place to live?" And I'm like, "No." And he's like, "You're living with me." So in 1988, Dave Righetti and I in Bergen County, New Jersey, I lived with Rags, and I'm calling home to my mom and my friends, and I'm like a little 12-year-old girl. "Oh, my God, Dave Righetti asked me to, live with him." He was single. I was single. Amazing. We were roommates. But more than anything else, Rich, and I know you know this, with respect to opening days, and this is no slight on the Blue Jays, the Mets, or the Marlins, or any other franchise in America, there is something a little different, and certainly back then when a lot of the Yankee greats were still with us, with respect to the banners and the opening day and the parade and the music and all of the dignitaries. It really felt like a national holiday, certainly in New York. So I have to say 1988, my first full year in the big leagues, and Billy Martin was my manager.
That's right.
To call your name, run out on the line at Yankee Stadium, the old Yankee Stadium. I mean, come on. I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it.
Yeah, you had, and Bob Shepard
announcing your name. Heck, yeah.
Al Leiter.
Leiter, number 28. Yes.
So Billy wasn't the one who told you made the team? Billy Martin wasn't the one. It was Righetti, huh?
No, so I kind of figured I was having a good spring. Art Fowler was the pitching coach, and Billy called me in. Yeah,
okay.
In Fort Lauderdale. But prior to that, probably a couple days earlier, and I know like Guidry and Righetti and Mattingly and those guys, the older guys know what's going on, and that's when Rags asked me where I was staying. That wasn't the official announcement because Billy then I forget the timing. It might have been a day later, and Billy called me in and told me I made the team. Yeah, what a thrill!
And true to form for a Billy Martin managed team, Lou Piniella was your manager by the end of the year, Al.
Yeah, that's right. Billy, Lou, let's see, 89 was Dallas.
Dallas
and then,
Green.
that was a mess during that time. And then Bucky came in. You had a little Stump Merrill.
Oh, that was the very dark before the dawn, the Howie Spira era after all of that, and then obviously oh my gosh.
Well, then as story goes, by George with Howie Spira. It was a Spira or Spear, Howie.
Yeah.
And the whole Winfield thing. George had to step aside, and that Stick Michael, along with Buck Showalter, helped create the core four or keep them.
That's right. Otherwise, they'd have been sent off to Columbus for the Ken Phelps of the day.
To Seattle for Felix Fermin.
Yeah, or for whoever the Ken Phelps of the era was, right?
No, that was a real deal. I think it was
Rivera,
Mariano for Felix Fermin.
Yeah, we had Joe Torre on the day after Mariano became the first unanimously selected player to the Baseball Hall of Fame, and he told us that it was on the table, Felix Fermin for Mariano Rivera, that it was really possible. And I'm like, wow, don't say that to me ever again. So let's talk about, I guess, the here and now then. How do you think Bryce Harper is going to handle the Philadelphia Heat with his contract? Because it's definitely a different animal than whatever was going on in Washington, D.C. for him up to this point of his career, Al.
True. Good point. Philadelphia, New York, Boston, different fan base for sure. Philadelphia, pretty harsh at times, I would say, putting it mildly. Somebody who grew up in New Jersey and is very familiar with that. Listen, I think Bryce just let's just go Citizens Bank Park. I mean, he was the most prolific, devastating hitter in that stadium with respect to OPS and all the numbers. So it is a very hitter-friendly park, and not that Bryce needs it, because when he barrels it, he can hit it out of Yellowstone. But I think Bryce is certainly mentally tough enough. I think the fact that he did move on away from the original team that drafted him, and he was anointed as the next, whomever, as the number one pick, and leaves high school early, et cetera. We know the story. I really think Bryce is going to have an outstanding year. I do. I think he's got plenty, not that he needs it, but plenty of support around him. I mean, Rhys Hoskins, 34 home runs last year. Real Muto is a guy. I know he's kind of hidden with the Marlins the last few years, but he's going to be really good. Gene Segura, he does get 200 hits a year. McCutchen, I certainly don't think he's over the hill. So there's a lot in that lineup. Again, not that Bryce needs a protection per se, but it's a much more difficult lineup to navigate, which in turn not only will it help a Bryce Harper and his talent, but everybody in that lineup. The Phillies are going to be really good this year.
So which is your team in the National League? Is it the Dodgers for a third straight year, do you think? What do you got for me?
No. My take is, and I did a show with Mark DeRosa this morning, and Lauren Shahadi, of course, and Robert Flores in the morning, and I had the Cardinals playing in the World Series, losing to the Brewers. Listen, Rich, it is so easy, or much easier, to identify what we think should be in the American League, right? I mean, it could roll off your tongue. Boston or Yankees win a division. Does Tampa hold up enough? I think they're going to be very competitive. I think the Central in the American League is kind of clear, almost like the National League West. It'll be Cleveland, but the Minnesota Twins made an awful lot of ground with their moves. And then the West, to me, is going to be Houston again. And does Oakland do anything close? I think it'll be an interesting story. The Angels will be better. That is just, it rolls off your tongue for me. The National League, if we were to have this conversation in September, I'm going to say it's going to be something like Philly, either or Mets, Washington, Atlanta, or if it was, I think the Phillies are going to win the East. I do, but I'm telling you, I say it hesitantly, and again, I think all four of those teams, Braves, Washington, Philadelphia, Mets, the Marlins are going to be better, but I wouldn't be surprised that the winner of that division has 87, 88 wins. They are going to thump on each other. The NL Central definitely has gained some depth. The Cubs will be back. Brewers are really good. The Cardinals are good. I don't see the Pirates or Cincinnati. Cincinnati made great.
They did
great moves.
They made some interesting maneuvers, Al. I mean, they're Puig is in Cincinnati, for crying out loud. I mean, that's
and I'll tell you, I think Sonny Gray's going to have a really good year. I do. I watch them a lot. I know you watching the Yankees closely. Didn't do well in New York, but did really well on the road. I think he, being back with Derek Johnson, his old pitching coach from Vanderbilt. I like that move. I like Tanner Roark. They're going to hit Cincinnati. Even though they almost lost 100 games last year, that could be one of the most turnaround teams that we'll see in 2019. The NL West, I think by default I say L.A. because they can buy and get whatever they need. The Kershaw ended up having a good spring. I really like Walker Buehler. I'm not sure. I think Colorado is going to be right in the mix, no doubt about it. I don't see San Francisco. San Diego will be better, but they're not a playoff team. The Arizona Diamondbacks went backwards. So the West is not nearly as interesting as the NL East or Central.
Well, we had Al Leiter here on the Rich Eisen Show. We had Dave Roberts on yesterday, and I pointed out the number of players, significant players, bold-face name players that are jobless right now, and asked him if the Dodgers would be interested in any of them, and he said they're done. They're done right now. One would imagine all the way through to July. So what do you think, Al?
Listen, I think everybody's trying to bottom fish right now with respect to some of the names out there. I am really, really surprised how Craig Kimbrell does not have a job out there, or a guy like Dallas Keuchel. Yeah. I don't know if it's a years issue. I don't know if they're AAV. But how these guys aren't in a big league uniform today is very, very odd to me. How could I mean, you talk about the Dodgers right there. I mean, Kenley, let's figure his, the heart problems
right
past him. I really like Joe Kelly, but come on, you talk about in this day and age, especially a sabermetric team like the Dodgers, you couldn't use a Craig Kimbrell. Now, I'm just throwing it out there, and I know Kimbrell's deserving and should be a closer somewhere, but that'd be a real nice arm. the rotation. Not that they need another left-hander with Ryu and Rich Hill, but if you can get Keuchel on a one-year deal, that doesn't work for so many of the playoff teams that are looking for, especially if their rotation drops off after 1, 2, 3. Your 4, 5s are pretty weak on some, even the playoff teams.
This might be an odd way to question about the Dodgers here with a young player like Seager and Muncy and obviously Bellinger. But, is their window closing? I mean, Kershaw is not even healthy enough to start this season. Obviously, they think they're going to get him in April. But what do you think about the Dodgers here?
I don't think the Dodgers ever has a window that closes. I think they're really smart front office. I think the retooling is really the word. I mean, if you remember a couple years ago what Brian Cashman did when they saw that they were out of it, making some trades and bolstering their bullpen minor leagues, in particular with the Chapman trade and Andrew Miller to the Indians. They had a couple nice trades that bolstered their minor leagues. I think you might see that as a little bit of a turnover, but no, I don't ever see the Dodgers, saying that the window closes and it's going to be like a 3 to 5 year build-up. Only because they can go out and buy the next whomever. If they wanted to. I know they didn't do it with Bryce for whatever reason, but they can if they want. So that franchise, I don't think would ever go through a few years where it looks like they're not trying to win.
A few minutes left with Leiter, MLB Network here on the Rich Eisen Show. What's with the Cubs? I mean, that's obviously an open-ended question, but you just sense some severe disappointment with the performance of last year, and wondering about their viability moving forward, even though that they have seemingly everything that you need. What do you make of the Cubs on opening day 2019?
They're going to be in the mix. I think, again, the NL Central to me is the hardest to really handicap because I believe that, like the NL East with 4 teams, Brewers, Cubs, Cardinals are going to be right there in the mix. And they'll be competing for that wild card as well. I just like what the Brewers did. I think the Cubs absolutely will be in there. They need for Chris Bryant to come back and bounce back, and better than the 13 home runs that he had last year. But the making of that lineup, and even if you look at their rotation, I think that Jose Quintana, I thought they might get a little better than the 4 ERA. They upped Kyle Hendricks, who I like a lot. Cole Hamels, is on his, he's older on the older side than the younger side, as well as John Lester. Pedro Strop as their closer. There's some areas where you wonder where they're going to lean on to try to improve come trade deadline. But this is a team that should have enough together that would be certainly a playoff team. Baez, moving over to short. I guess Addison Russell is now a bench utility guy. So there are some concerns there. So
last 2 questions for you here: a long-term one and then the short-term one. The short-term one first. Who wins the World Series this year? What do you got for me?
I got Houston winning.
Houston over the Cardinals. Okay, you got Houston winning.
And I'm telling you, I say that reluctantly. The National League, if Nationals, Phillies, Mets, Brewers, Cubs, Dodgers, all of those, if you said they're in, I get it. There's more flaws that make each of those respective teams really good, but no one really shines the way, to me, how the standout of the Red Sox, the Yankees, and Houston stand out in the American League.
Okay, and Harper, Trout, Machado just signed those monster decade-plus long contracts, certainly in the case of Trout. We check in 10 years from now. The player with the most rings is?
Oh, most rings. Mm-hmm. Harper, Trout,
Machado.
Oh, boy, that's a good question. Dang you. I'm going to go oh, God, Rich. Let's go with Bryce.
Okay. All right.
Reluctantly.
Okay.
That's a good question.
Bryce
has got no opt-out, so he's there for 13 years, so the Phil's got to do it. They got to do it.
They got to do it. I know. So I add Arenado to that. Do you change your choice?
Ooh. Yeah, let me give Colorado Rockies some love. That could be one that steps up.
Okay, and let me add Judge to that because he's going to hit it very soon. What do you think?
Okay, then I'm going to say Judge. The Yankees they're so good. They're so deep. They've got a nice pipeline, and now in the minor leagues that's backing up. I got the Yankees. They're going to get to the ALCS. They're going to, whatever. I mean, it's all crystal ball stuff, but.
Right.
They could easily beat the Astros. I think that they're going to win the division.
Well, Al, enjoy being on the MLB Network and
Thank you, Rich.
SEC baseball circuit. I'm very happy for
12
you.
12 hours today, 9 a.m. for 12 hours. We got live coverage of opening day at MLB Network.
Attaboy. Well done. There may be an eye in Leiter, but you're still a team player. Good job,
man. Thanks, Rich.
Good chatting. Thanks, Al.
Take care.
You got it. That's Al Leiter.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern on Audience.